Welcome to Heart Home Community's most recent Baldwinsville Community Update. I'm your host, Shelly Hoffman. Hey, good afternoon. I'm with Bob Wicks, and it's August, so we're going to have our August Community Update. How you doing today, Bob?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Nice. I've talked to 3 people in the last 24 hours that can't believe it's already August. So I don't know how your summer's going, but...
Fast. I do it. I look at it from my boat. How many times have I been out on my boat? And it hasn't been that many this year. So I'm going to have to step it up in August because after Labor Day, I usually put it down because I got caught one year taking out my boat and my dock in a snowstorm. So I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, I hear you on that one. I don't have the boat anymore, but the dock last year, it was pretty cold when I took it out. You know what? My motivation, anybody who drives past, if you know where I live in the house I just sold, you'll see me in my pool because I have maybe 40 days left to use that pool. So whether I jump in at noon to noon 12:25 and hop back out and go to my next appointment or not, but I am bound and determined to use that pool as much as I can in August.
There you go. Yeah.
So what have you been up to in the town of Lysander since we spoke?
Well, I don't have a lot today, but I think some of the things we're going to talk about, people will be happy about. The soccer fields and lacrosse fields down in the park, if anybody's driven by, they're starting to come up pretty nicely. And we're going to oversee them in the fall. And hopefully by the spring, we'll be able to use those. And then what that'll do is we have a Spence field where you need to rotate fields so that they don't get beat up. So hopefully next year we can maybe in the spring rotate Spence field out of the use. Then we can overseed it, then give it time to repair itself, and then put it back in the fall. And if we can do that with all our fields, with these 2 additional fields, that should be able to maintain them in much better condition. Although they're in good condition, but they do get beat up if they have constant use, like 10 months out of the year. Now, I know people wanted us to do something about the safety along Henkel Boulevard. And the problem for us is the part of that field and the ditch and all the way over to the road is actually in the right of way for Onondaga County. So in order for us to do anything, we have to get permission from Onondaga County. So we sent in a permit to do some work there. We've had Marty Voss, he's commissioner of DOT for Onondaga County. He came out, took a look at it, assessed everything, and he's the one who told us, yeah, you're actually in the right of way part of the field. Okay, that's great. So we sent in the permit, and what we're asking to do is to put up boulders from the whole length of the soccer field, all the way down from one end to the other. And they'll be like 2-foot boulders. Now, once you come out, and what we'd like to do is put them close to the ditch, because if a car goes down into the ditch and comes out, 2 feet doesn't seem that high, but if you're coming out of that ditch, there's no way a vehicle is going to drive over a 2-foot boulder on the top, when it's coming out. It'll stop them. And those 2-foot boulders, it's not like they weigh 50 pounds. They're probably 500 pounds or more. But that's our goal, to line those all the way up, down, and that should prevent anything like that happening again. I think the chances of that happening again are better than getting hit by lightning. But the fact that it's there, we want to make sure people feel comfortable, sending their kids over there. My grandkids go over. I'm in the same boat, so I understand it. So this should take care of it, and I think that we will get approval to do that, but we should know any time now.
Okay. The boulders, I like the landscaping look of boulders. So even from an aesthetic look, I think, outlining that road along the side. So I don't think it'll be a bad look to add to the park either. Not that you care about my opinion on the look spot, but I'm sharing it anyway.
No. I mean, yeah, we have that park looking pretty nice right now. And certainly that was one of the goals, anything that we do in the park, if you want it to be serve a purpose, but certainly aesthetics are a part of it. And those great boulders, people use them in their yards all over the place. I mean, either as retaining walls or they use them as decorative pieces. And when we put them up there, I don't think it'll be a bad look at all. And like you said, I think it'll be as decorative as it is useful. So that was one of the reasons why we went with those type of granite boulders, because they are aesthetically pleasing to the eye, and they kind of blend into the surroundings. You know, they're not going to stick out like if we put big poles in there or something like that. Eden and Exeter Lane up off of Dexter Parkway, the highway's going to start redoing those anytime now. I should be, maybe even next week, but before the end of the year, certainly they're going to be totally redone, and they should be starting those anytime soon. And so people should take that into consideration, because it should be a fairly quick process. It's not as big a process as we did on Connell Terrace, but it's because I don't think they're replacing the catch basins. I think they're just redoing the roads. So they're going to mill and fill, and those things go by pretty quickly. If they're just doing the mill and fill, they can probably do those two roads within 1 to 2 weeks and have it done start to finish. One of the things, and people might want to either come to the meeting or at least watch the meeting, but one of the things that I'm going to propose is that we do not participate in 100% assessments for the next couple of years. Okay, what does that mean? It means that we're not going to reassess people's homes for the next 2 years. That's what that means. And the reason that I thought that was a good idea, it's going to be pretty crude right here, but in 2018, if we had a $200,000 house, what is that house today? You could probably give me a better idea than that, maybe 250,000 or more. More than that. Say 275 to 300. So we're at 275 today. And why is that? Well, I can give you one example. In Radisson, I know of a house that was put on the market for $449,000. Now, you're a realtor. If you put a house on the market for $449,000, you're trying to get the most value out of the house, correct? I mean, that's so, in your opinion and other professionals' opinion, that's what that house is worth, $449,000, right? So that house sold for, I think that particular house sold for $539,000. So we're talking about a $90,000 swing. So what does that do? That helps to push up those assessments on everybody else. Well, the majority of people in Lysander are not going to be selling their houses, because first of all, where are you going to go? If you sell your house for $275,000, if it's a 1,500 square foot house, it's going to cost you $375,000 to build a new one, if you can even get it done. So we got this curve. I don't know if you can see it.
Nice, very nice drawing, yes.
Bell curve, yeah. So at the top, this is where we were. Let me see. This is where we were, and this is where we are now. Well, they're going to come down because we're at the peak. They're already starting to come down. But the problem for us is the assessor is working on last year's sales. So what does that mean? When I was talking to the assessor, she told me that we were looking at another 15% increase across the board. I said, that's just ridiculous, especially when they're coming down. So what I'm going to suggest is that we hold the line on the assessments at least for a couple of years, because we want to be at 100%, because that's the fairest way for people. People pay their fair share if everybody's paying what their home value is worth. But because of these extreme sale prices on these houses, things are out of whack. Well, if we wait this year and next year, especially now, I mean, we're the 800,000, or I think it's $800 billion proposal that the president is looking to get passed, it's going to increase taxes for everybody. Well, once you start increasing those taxes, it's going to slow things down. And the interest rates, I don't know what are they today? They're over 6%, right? They're creeping up on 7%.
Well, yeah, they're creeping. I mean, you could still get some for, five and a quarter, 5.75, things like that. But the problem is people that got pre-approved 2 months ago, they have to run all new numbers. And I just want to interject for 1 second. When you brought up the house that was listed for 449, and as realtors, that's where we saw the value. What we tell people is the value is what a buyer is willing to pay for it. And what people don't understand is that there's buyers that are willing to pay $90,000 more for the house. So the house didn't get appraised for that from a bank, but assessed value equates to market value, and the market value is what a buyer is willing to pay. So if a buyer is willing to pay up here, then our assessor has to, like you said, look at what sold last year, and that market value is bringing those assessed values up. So we talked before we got started live, that you're going to propose to do that. And I just, I live in Lysander. I live in the Baldwinsville area. And I thought, oh my gosh, that would be great because I'm watching these sell prices. I look at the market every day and I'm seeing what things are going for. But you're right. There's a definite shift in the market. So I think kudos to you for at least acknowledging that shift is coming, and maybe to do something, just to see what happens in the next 2 years with the market values of homes, because that does affect the assessed value.
Well, I know nationwide, and you can tell them you would be more in tune with locally, but nationwide, they've certainly slowed down. Oh, yeah. Other than, unless you're moving to Florida, if you're moving to Florida, they're still, even in Florida, though, they've slowed down. I have a couple of friends down there, and they said, yeah, they're still selling, but they have slowed down. But up here, certainly we're going to slow it down, because if you could afford a $450,000 house when the interest rates were around 3% or less than 3%. Now that they're up to 5%, you can't afford that house anymore. You're looking at a $300,000 house or less. So that's a $150,000 swing. I mean, so those houses that people were able to say come in and throw down an extra $50,000 on that because they had some money in the bank, they're not going to be able to do that anymore. So that's going to slow the market down. And I think if we're working on last year's numbers, it's not going to be that way next year, and certainly the following year. I think if we just put a moratorium on these assessments for a couple of years, I think things are going to level out. Now, a house that was $200,000, say, when this market started getting crazy, and I think it was around 2018, right? Somewhere around there.
19, but it started going up in 2018.
Yeah, 18 and 19. A house that was $200,000, it's not going to be $200,000 when we get through, but it probably won't be 275 or 300. It may come down to maybe 225, 235, but that's a big difference, in your assessed value. I mean, so when that comes down, it means everybody's the overall sale of houses come down. And when the assessor looks at all these houses selling across the town, now it won't be. There were so many houses selling across the town that it was across the board. Every neighborhood you were getting these sales. Now what'll happen? Maybe specific neighborhoods. We'll pick a neighborhood. Radisson. We'll pick a neighborhood in Radisson. Maybe Radisson sales will keep going, or maybe Clinton Heights will keep going, or Whispering Oaks will keep going. But other neighborhoods will slow down. So now, instead of doing an across the board reassessment, it'll just be in those neighborhoods that trigger those sales. So if you got 20 houses in Radisson selling, but no houses in Clinton Heights selling, well, that's not going to trigger a reassessment of houses in Clinton Heights. So it'll just be in the neighborhoods where the value of the houses have gone up. And I think for us right now, that's the prudent thing to do. Hopefully I'm right, but I don't think that people are going to complain with us if we take that approach and let it ride for a little while, because I don't think an additional 15% this year. I really think people will lose their mind, because and the other thing is, we got high inflation. I think that's going to slow things down. People are starting to, the economy is retracting, so there's not going to be as many jobs out there as there was before. So people are going to start either not being able to find jobs or losing their jobs. There's a possibility. Now, Syracuse is different from the rest of the country. We are more stable. We don't see those ebbs and flows, but I think we're going to see it a little bit more, especially with these high interest rates. When you go to the grocery store, thank God my kids are older now. They're the ones paying for their kids, because I know when my wife and I we went into Tops the other day, and we got one bag of groceries, and we spent $80, and that bag didn't have much in it. I had to look at it. I thought they made a mistake, but there were only like 6 or 7 items in there, and we're paying $80. I can't imagine a household of 4 that have kids and things that are drinking a gallon of milk a day, like I used to do when I was a kid. I don't know how they're actually doing it. So that extra 15%, especially when it's on its way down, I think it's a good idea to just slow down. Let's see what's going on, because why should people that are staying in their houses, and that's 60, 70, 80% of the population in Lysander, why should they pay for these inflated prices? Now, the people that are buying those and they're paying them, okay, when they pay $530,000 for a house, okay, then they know what the taxes are going to be. But everybody else that are staying in those houses, they're trying to ride this out. So we're trying to give them some relief. And I think by doing this will give them some relief until these houses and the value of these homes come back to an equilibrium.
Well, like I said, something has to be done. I have conversations as well as you do, because of your position, when the assessment letters went out last year, the assessments letters went out this year. And there are some people that, they're really afraid that they're going to not be able to afford their home if it happens again, just because they're in some type of a fixed budget, or the way that, the house is, the condition of the home is based on where the assessment value is. And I know you get those phone calls. The assessor certainly had a ton of people calling in this year. I didn't realize that was the percentage, but it makes sense, because I watched the sales prices, as things closed, and we looked where they were listed, what they sold for, what they were assessed for previously. So I'm not surprised to see that that she told you it was another 14 or 15% from last year to, than previous years.
And I specifically, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sure I can speak for the rest of the board, we're sensitive to this. We try to do the things that make sense for the community. We want to be fair, but I don't think that with these prices like that, it's fair to the majority of the people that are staying in their homes. I just don't think it is. So, we're trying to do something to address it. And I listen to those calls. I had people in my office, and I felt bad for some of them, because I'll give you an example. You got people that are on, like you said, on a fixed income. They're living on Social Security and maybe a small pension. Well, what happens when one of those people pass away? Now they lose a third or more of their income. Now, where they could afford that house before, and we're not talking about a $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 house. We're talking about houses that are $125,000. Now they're up to $160,000, $170,000. I mean, that's a lot of money for these people. And I sat here and listened to them, and I really was racking my brain, and what can we do to address that? And this was the only thing, especially when I heard that 15% number, that shocked me. It's not that, and believe me, my family, when I was a kid, my family would have been one of those families that would have been really, really affected by this type of increase. Now, fortunately for me today, am I affected by it? Yeah. Does it mean that I'm going to not be able to, buy groceries? No. I mean, but certainly it affects me. But when you're talking about people that have to take a look at, are they going to be able to afford their medication? Are they going to have to think about not going to the doctors as often, or things like that? Because who does it affect the most? It affects the real elderly, people in their 70s and 80s that have been on a fixed income for a long time and don't have the ability to increase their income, and people on the lower economic spectrum that maybe have to work 2 jobs. And I happen to be one of them years ago. I mean, until I got this job, I worked 2 jobs almost my entire life. My wife worked since she was 15, so I understand it. And we're trying to address that, and I think this will. Even if the state comes in, because what people don't realize, the state will come in if we're not at 100%. If they go up 15%, we'll be at 85%. Well, the state's going to come in and do an equalization rate. So what they do is they're going to equalize the school and the county taxes. But what we found, and I had our assessor in the room, and we took a $200,000 house in our school district here that lives in Lysander, and one that lives in a house that has Baldwinsville school districts, but is in Clay. And Clay is at about 3% or 6%, something like that. I don't mean to pick on Clay, but that's the house that we use. Now we looked at what those people in Clay are paying for school taxes. So theoretically, if you have a $200,000 house in the same school district and the state comes in and equalizes everything, theoretically you should be paying the same amount of school tax. That's not happening. The people in Clay are actually paying much, much less. And I'm thinking it's almost $800 or $1,000 less than the people in the town of Lysander. So when the state's coming in and doing that equalization, we're trying to do it right. We're trying to be fair to everybody, to have them pay their fair share. But because of the way that they do assessments in the town of Clay, and they just allow the state to come in and equalize those rates, people in that town of Clay that are in the school district are paying much less than people here. And that just isn't right. So you add all of those components in, and I think the most fair thing for us to do is to just ride it out for a while, see where we are, and then just keep an eye on it and to see where what people are paying. Take a look at people that live in Lysander and that go to Phoenix school districts, because we have a small portion of people that live in Lysander and their kids would go to Phoenix, and then a small portion that live in Clay that go to Baldwinsville school district. So if we take a look at that and make it and keep it fair across the board, and if the prices come down, which I think they are, even though we're not at 100% now, maybe next year or the following year we will be at 100%, and then we can reevaluate it at that point.
Well, it's definitely, again, I'm not looking, there's always two sides to everything, I guess. If you bring this up at the meeting, maybe somebody will have something different to say. But from my standpoint as a resident in the town of Lysander, it would be great to see just let's wait and see approach, as opposed to keeping them going up. Some of the numbers I heard from colleagues of mine was insane. I mean, I know it was supposed to be 14% or whatever across the board, but depending on what price point you're at and how much you're paying in taxes, 14% was an awfully high number in some of the neighborhoods where I talk to people. So.
Yes, and the neighborhoods that you're talking about are people that are probably six figures and up. I mean, so even though nobody's not affected by this, and I don't mean to minimize it, but when you really that's a lot of money. They're paying $15,000, $20,000 or more. That's a lot. That's a lot in taxes. But when you talk about people that, some of those people in those neighborhoods are putting in $100,000 pools. 150,000. I know, because my nephew does hardscapes in Lysander, and he's telling me about a pool with hardscapes, $150,000 for a pool in a backyard. And sure, that will increase the value of the house, but we're talking about people that own houses that don't even cost as much as what those hardscape and those pools are. Those people are really it's almost life-changing for them. Not almost, it is.
It is life-changing.
Although everybody's affected, I mean, that's tragic for them, but I mean, not to minimize it, people paying $20,000. Onondaga County is overtaxed as it is. And we as a town board, we can't affect everything, but we need to do as much as we can to help people with their tax burden and still be fair. And I think this is fair. I don't think that going on last year's rates when things are coming down, raising them 15%, like you said, those people that are paying $20,000, you add another 15% on top of that. That's a big big number. And a lot of those people are retired as well. They worked all their life. They did the right things. They saved up their money. They bought a nice house. And now, they're going to be pushed out of their house because of the taxes. We don't want that to happen, we're going to try and do everything we can to minimize that tax burden. So hopefully this will help with that. And I think it will.
And that meeting's tomorrow? Is that when you said you were having the meeting?
It's Thursday night. Yeah.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
So what else has been going on? Any new projects or things in the works?
What new projects do we have? I think we have a lot of projects on hold, and there's a number of projects that I thought were going to be moving along, but the problem is with the interest rates going up, the cost of materials, the problem with getting materials, the problem with getting help. So construction is really having a tough time keeping up with just the inflated cost of everything. I mean, I have a friend that's a commercial roofer, and he does these big jobs. He can't find people to come to work, and his job, he's paying people between $50,000 and $60,000 a year. Well, that's not chump change. $50,000 or $60,000 a year isn't a bad pay. He can't find people to fill those spots. So he's he's really struggling, where I used to send him work, different people, they would do residential work, because he could come in with his crew. He'd finish your job in a day. I mean, get it done. And now he can't even take those jobs because he has to pay attention to the bigger jobs that he has to ensure that he has enough people to do those. And that's just not him. There's a number of people in the community that are having the same problems. A lot of these builders are having those problems. And, some of the developments, some of the projects that we were looking at, they really grinded to a halt because of the extreme cost of materials and labor.
Yeah, obviously, again, with what I do, but I have a really great floor guy, and everybody has like who they use for different things, but he has a hard time getting help, or he assumes he's going to have some help for a day. And I walk into the project he's working on and it's just him. And when it's a one, I'm sure your friend has a larger operation. In this case, a lot of times it's a one-man show, and you can only accomplish so much in the course of a day. And again, he does good work, so he gets referrals, but he's having to turn down jobs because he just cannot get the help to get jobs punched out in a timely manner like he used to. So,
well, I had a patio redone in my backyard, and that's all hardscape. I mean, this was a big job, and the guy that did it, he's an ox. He's about 260 pounds, just a mountain of a guy. He did, I'd bet you 80% of that job by himself. 80%. It took 6 months because he couldn't. He'd hire 2 guys. Nobody shows up, so he's there by himself. Then in one day he'd have 3 people. Next day he'd have 2. Next day he'd have 1. Then it's him again. I mean, and that's been difficult for people. So a lot of these jobs have slowed down. Now we got I don't know if I talked about this last month, but we applied for a grant out on Mills Road. Mills Road, people that live along that road have a problem with their water, and we applied for a grant out there between $50,000 and $150,000. That was the amount that they would give out. We got okayed for the grant. I just don't know how much money we got yet, but we did get it. We've been pretty fortunate. We got another one of those grants, and that's one of the things that's helping to keep our budget where it is, because we've been like with some of the road work we did over in Radisson this year. We got a $468,000. It's called I forget the name of it off the top of my head, but it was money for highway. So $468,000 to do town roads that we don't have to tax the community for. We got one of those last year. So in 2 years, we got $950,000. All that work that we're doing down in the park, I was just figuring it up today. We either have the money or been granted a grant that we have to go through the steps of about $700,000. That's all just about the majority, 95% of the work that's going on in the park is all grant money. That wasn't paid for by the community, and we're getting some benefits out of that, because later on when those fields go up, if you have these different groups, they charge a fee, which goes back into helping us maintain a level for the budget in the parks budget, able to maintain a certain level there without increasing taxes, because we're getting more revenues in. And even when we do that, the people that are utilizing those facilities are getting a good deal as well. So, we continue to really push hard on these grants, and hopefully, they keep coming in, because the more we get, the less we have to tax the, residents of the community.
Now, I always like to hear when you guys get grant money to do things. The park itself, I think it was probably 2 weeks ago, was the first time I drove past the park in a while, and it really is. You can just tell the difference. Sometimes people say they put money into a park, but it's always happened in the back, but that park is absolutely beautiful. And you said there's going to be more parking eventually to go with that park with the additional fields, because I know that was a concern when we talked to people, because people were parking along the road because there wasn't parking in the park when so many events were happening at the same time.
If you look at Spence Field, there's another parking lot to the left of that, in between the entrance to the park and Spence Field. There's parking there now. I think they haven't completed the whole thing, but there's probably enough for about another 30 cars there. And when it gets through, when we're done with it, and they should be done, I'd say by the end of the month, certainly by the fall time, there should be another 64 spots there, and that will eliminate that parking along the road. So that was one of the other safety concerns we had, because people are walking out in the road, and people driving down the road, if they not slowing down, people have to weave in and out. Well, now this should take care of that, along with the boulders along the side. We met a couple of safety concerns that people have had. And not only that, aesthetically, I mean, you look at it just aesthetically, I think it looks great. I mean, and we're continuing to do more. I mean, like we talked about before, we got another $350,000 in the works. We got $100,000 of it to redo the bathrooms there. And then we got another $250,000 to put in, or that we've been awarded. We're still working through the process to put in, upgrade the children's facility there, the children's playground, and to install a new fitness facility there. So when we get all through, there's going to be a lot of things in that park that will appeal to a number of people. My goal was to have it appeal from people from 5 to 85, and I think we're going to do that. You look at that pickleball court, that's really that's taken a life of its own. Yes. People love it. And I've been told we have the nicest pickleball courts in the county, which is nice to hear, because we put a lot of money into it. But you can go over there. I guarantee you go over there today, you're going to see 20 or 30 people over there.
Oh, every time I turn around, another one of my friends is taking up pickleball. They love it.
That's great. And there's no cost to it. You can go over, you can use the facilities, and that's what we want. We want the more people we can get to utilize that park, that means that park has a value. The value goes up because more people can participate in things in a park. So if we can get 5-year-olds going over playing on a playground, the skate park, that's been utilized pretty well. We get that fitness center in there, that'll appeal to younger people as well as older people. We're going to look at increasing the walking trail, doubling the size of that walking trail eventually. That's one of the next projects we're going to be working on, and then you have the parking. We want to increase the parking, so there's plenty of parking for people to come in when they utilize that. Then later on, I know our director of parks is looking to increase the programming, so that people will be able to come over. When we have that fitness area there, we'll have people to come in and show them how to use the equipment, maybe have some Zumba things there. He's got some good ideas as far as what he wants to do in the future. But, this is a 5-year plan, but we're continuing to try to make that park really appeal to the masses, everybody, so that there's something in that park for everybody.
No, it's a great, it already is a great park, and you guys are just exceeding the expectations of what people were thinking the park was going to turn into. So that's awesome. All right. Well, before we wrap up, any last thoughts or tidbits for the community?
Well, I think that we got budget time coming up, and it would be nice to have people weigh in on on our budgets. To come to listen to what we have to say. It would be nice if people came this week and at least acknowledged. When we do things, we want to make sure that we're on the right track, and hopefully people think that this. Assessment idea, holding the line on the assessments for the next couple of years and let it weigh out is the right thing to do. We need confirmation too. I mean, generally, the only time we hear from the public is when things go wrong. Now, I did get a letter from a lady and her husband that live out on Guider Road that had nothing but good things to say. They had some flooding in their house, and our highway department went over there. And it actually wasn't us. It was something that the DEC did, where they had a oil spill out there. And I don't have the letter in front of me, but they were very, very complimentary about our highway superintendent and our highway personnel. So these are nice when I get these letters from people, telling us that we're doing a good job. And that's the only way we would know. I could sit here and think, man, we're doing a great job. And if everybody else thinks that, that we suck, I mean, that doesn't do that well. But normally, I can tell, I know that when I was a police chief in Marcellus, when I first got in there, that place was not running that well. And I got a lot of complaints. And as the years went on, we got fewer and fewer complaints until we didn't get any complaints, and people were starting to bring us little baskets of stuff, and then we get letters, hey, you guys are doing a great job, so that was kind of nice. So I knew that we were on the right track there. So we haven't gotten any baskets in the town here yet, but I noticed that I do notice that the amount of complaints that I've been getting in the last 2 years have gone down, although when we were doing the assessments, that took care of the complaints. And I just want to ensure people to let them know we are listening. I'm listening to your complaints. The board is listening to your complaints, and we're trying to address it. And this is one of the ways that we're doing that.
Perfect. So, all right. Well, so Thursday, you heard them, people. If you have thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent, Thursday night. What time is the meeting, Bob?
7:00, but we have a work session at 6:00. I know that is, a 2-hour meeting or 2.5-hour meeting is kind of long, but if 7:00 is the general meeting where we vote on things and give people the opportunity to speak on, town issues if they choose to.
Well, then before we part ways for today, I'm going to share Denise White, who watches the show a lot, and she said, keep up the good work. So there's your positive feedback for the day, Bob.
That's great. That's what I like to hear.
All right. Well, I will look forward to next month, and I am going to try and come. I say this a lot, and real estate, we work when other people don't typically, but I'm going to try and make the Thursday meeting, because I think this is important to hear what people have to say about the assessment, because it affects all of us. So yeah, hopefully I see you Thursday night. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay.
Talk to you later, Bob.
All right. Bye.